Hey, how's it going, everyone? And in today's video, we're going to take a look at backend deployment to Microsoft Azure. I have a video where we deployed the front-end application using Microsoft Azure. Now we're going to cover the backend portion of it. So it is similar to Elastic Beanstalk from Amazon. So basically, it just does the same thing. Whichever to pick between the two, it's up to you. Really, I think they are services having the same kind of functionality. So it really boils down to your preference or certain maybe strings attached to one service or another. But I do want to say that Microsoft Azure is a little bit beginner friendly. It doesn't overwhelm you with a lot of settings right off the bat. So you have the same functionality, but you can refer to that a little bit later, and you will see what I mean by that because all the settings are in one place. The setup container process is very simple and stuff like that. And one major difference, I would say, this could be a major difference to someone, is that Microsoft Azure gives you SSL certificate for your backend application right away, so you don't have to touch anything, you don't have to do anything. It's just by default. Whereas Elastic Beanstalk, on the other hand, that it does give you the certificate for free if you have a domain. So you either need to have a domain or you need to purchase domain, and it involves a little bit of configuration there as well. So it's not just as simple as easy as it is in Microsoft Azure, which comes with it out of the box. All right. With that out of the way, let's create our backend application. We're going to deploy this. Don't get confused by this repository name, AWS Hosting Backend. It is the backend after all application, and I have an Azure branch here. So it's just the naming, okay? We're going to use AWS backend and Azure branch to deploy our code. Now, you set up the portal, you connect your GitHub to your Azure portal as well. And after that, you will need to go to App Services. You either click here or you search it from this menu. You click on it, you go to this page, you click Create Web App. Now, this looks familiar to deployment process through Elastic Beanstalk, but the only difference is that it does not have all of the settings at once. So it's not overwhelming you. It's just giving you the basic stuff that you need to fill out, and the rest you can do later. So realistically, as you can see here, we can right away click review and create. I mean, not right away, but we need to still fill out like the name and the run task and certain things here. But essentially, what it tells us is that you only need to complete this basic page. Everything else, database deployment, networking, is optional, and you can refer to those later. All right, so let's give it a name. Best, I don't know, to do app. If it is available, it's going to be this green check mark here. And this is essentially our backend address. It's going to be best to do app.azurewebsites.net. It also, as soon as you fill out the name, it pre-populates this resource group for you. If you don't like it or you have something specific that you want to use, then pick or create that resource group. So we're going to pick the run task. It's going to be in Node 20. Since we are having a Node.js application, you can choose the operating system here. I'm going to keep it as Linux. Region is East US. It doesn't really matter for this, especially if you are deploying a pet project. So it's whatever, but I'm going to show you possible options. I'm going to pick West US 3, and in here we having this pricing plan. You see that we can have different options right away, and there is this free option. It also gives you the pricing here, estimate. Okay, make sure that you read it correctly because some people are, so why it's not 12 bucks? It said 12 bucks, but it's estimate, right? So you can pick this free option here, or you can pick a different region. Sometimes, like if you look at the West US, it only gives you this option. It doesn't have like a drop down anymore because probably I would assume all the other options are taken, even though you can create this container with this option and then you can go ahead and switch it for whatever reason that's available after the fact, okay, after you create the app. So if you really, for whatever reason, need West US and this is the only option it gives you, create a container with this option, and then you will be able to go back and change the pricing plan once the app is created. All right. I'm not going to bother doing that, switching things around. I'm just going to pick West US 2. It does give me this free thing right away. I'm happy with that. And that's it. That that's everything we need to set up. And you see how easier it is compared to Elastic Beanstalk, where you have like tons of settings that you need to kind of figure out. I mean, yeah, you can probably click through those and don't bother like filling out certain things, but I mean, it's just easier this way, you know. Um, Now you can click review and create, and basically, if you go ahead and hit create here, it will create a container. That's all we need. But I want to show you one more thing before we do that, and that is if you go to deployment, if you pick anything but free tier plan. Right now, if I hit this basic authentication enable, what's supposed to happen is this should be available for us. We should be able to enable it. But since we have this message saying that in the free tier, you cannot do this. If we switch to West US 3 and we pick anything but the free tier, let's pick premium, and we go back to deployment, we hit this enable, and now this available to us as well. And we enable that, continuous deployment, and now we can connect our GitHub account from here. Now, this setting is going to be available to us after we create a container. We do not need a premium account in order to have this. It's just for your convenience. If you do it over here, it just kind of do the same, like two things at once. It creates a container and then it right away deploys your code. So there is no really a benefit of doing this here, except for, you know, it's easier probably. You set up everything in one place during the app creation. Okay, let's go back to West US. We're gonna have, oh, actually that's West US 2. Um, this is a free tier that's available to us. Yesterday on West US and West US 2, there were some options available. For whatever reason, probably it's just, you know, too many people. Um, it's probably overwhelmed. But West US 3 is giving me errors. I don't know why. No matter which container I pick, it's just erroring out for myself. Maybe you'll have a better luck. Anyway, West US 2 it is, free tier, review and create. Okay, so what is this thing going to do right now? It's going to create a container. Think of this as an Elastic Beanstalk container. It does not deploy in your code at the moment because, well, that wasn't available to us. We got to do it from the setting after this finishes deployment. Okay, it's gonna take about like a minute or two the most. So this process is very fast, and that's another thing that I like about Azure because on average, it's a little bit faster than the Elastic Beanstalk from Amazon, especially when you're deleting things. If you going to delete Elastic Beanstalk container, well, man, good luck. It's going to take like anywhere between like 15 minutes to a couple hours. Sometimes it, you know, need 24 hours to properly propagate all the changes across environments. Anyway, we finish our deployment here. As you can see, you can click go to resource, or you can go to the home page, click app settings again, which we're going to do. But let's click this go to resource for now. We end up on this overview page, and all the app settings that you possibly can wish for are here. And this is what, again, I like about Azure. Because in Elastic Beanstalk, you go to Beanstalk container settings, you go to EC2 container settings, virtual machine settings. So they are kind of scattered across a little bit. Over here, it's all in one place. Everything you need is just here. And you see, if you need to configure your core settings, you just go there. If you need some monitoring metrics, it's all over here. SSH is here, and other settings are all kind of in one place. That's good. All right, so if we go to the home page real quick, just want to show you, and you click on the app service again, you're going to see your application listed over here. This is essentially what we've done so far. So you click on that, you end up on this overview page. You can collapse that. And what we need to do from this point is basically go to Deployment Center. This is the alternative to Code Pipeline in Amazon. So you either click here or you click on Deployment Center. And now we need to attach our branch from the GitHub to this container, and that will create a commit in our branch, and it will commit the YAML file so it can deploy. It kind of is going to set up CI/CD in your GitHub account. So let's pick our GitHub profile, AWS hosting backend. So again, don't be confused by the naming. We're going to pick the Azure branch. And that's pretty much it. Everything else is going to stay as default. All we need to do is just hit save on top here, and that's going to provision our code. That's going to deploy our code. And now we're going to switch to, after we see this success message here, there we go, setting up deployment. And in a couple of minutes or in a minute, you should see some stuff appearing here in this list. So far, it's probably not going to give us anything, but it will soon. All right, let's switch to our GitHub account. The same branch, AWS hosting backend, Azure branch. Now, as you can see, Azure branch had recent pushes 19 seconds ago. That's what our Azure account has done. It created a folder .github/workflows. And if you look inside that folder, it's just a YAML file, configuration file for your deployment to Azure. If you need to modify anything, you go ahead and modify that here, and you commit to this branch, and it will pick up the new settings. Okay, you can do this directly from GitHub, or you can just pull this branch to your local machine and do that there and deploy it to the branch. So that's essentially what happened. And also, if you look into the actions, and this is your pipeline or your build. If you click on it, and you'll see deployment process is in progress, right? So this essentially is deploying our code to the Azure. And if you're going to have any errors during the build process, it's going to be here if you have some problem with your code. And I want to point out two things that I had during the testing, and those are the settings for the package JSON. So when you create the Node.js application by default, it just adds this test over here, and you usually, when you create Node.js app, you're using NodeMon, and you modifying this start script for yourself, probably to NodeMon. And for whatever reason, there's no problem with Elastic Beanstalk deploying it this way. It kind of overlooks these settings that you have in the package JSON. But for the Azure, it is important that this is going to be a Node.js. It has to be a Node.js. And for the testing, I haven't really dug into this. You either delete it from here and just leave it like this for the script start, and that's going to work. So basically, essentially, you just need to commit this to your branch, and your deployment is not going to have any errors. If you're leaving the test script because you do have tests in your application, then you would probably have to configure things and see if it deploys without errors and stuff like that. Or maybe you need to go to YAML file and configure it from here. So what you can do basically is just perhaps just removing this run test will do the work if you remove it from here and then commit this YAML instead of changing and removing this test from package JSON. Or you configure your testing properly so it not fails. Okay. But again, if you're doing this for a pet project, don't bother. Just copy what I am telling you here. Start script, note, and whatever the file name is. It doesn't have to be index. It could be app.js, whatever you have in your app. What's important is this node index.js or node rather, and remove the test. So that will make sure that the pipeline runs smoothly. And as you can see, this deployment is successful. Job is completed. Now, if you look into Azure, we have these logs here. The status is success, and that essentially tells us that our application has been deployed to our container. And if we go back to the overview, essentially, it takes like 5 or 7 minutes for this information to update here. Um, you can click refresh, and if you're lucky, this is fast enough. You'll see some timestamp here, and deployment provider is going to be GitHub. But it takes about 8 minutes to update this whole thing. Um, Now from here, what we're going to do is now our application is deployed to our virtual machine, to our container, and we need to set up our environment variables because in the app we have those envs, right? Mongo URI, app v1, and stuff like that. So if we're going to try to run our application, and this is on the overview page, we have this domain thing. If you click on it, this is the um, default domain address for our application. You will see that it's not going to load and it's going to spin forever until it times out, and you will see the error. For that error, you can open up the log stream inside of this log stream, you're going to be able to see those errors from running the environment. Right now, it usually takes a minute or two to update itself, so don't expect every time you hit this page, see any console logs in here right away. And also keep in mind that inside of this log stream, if you're using free tier version, free tier pricing plan, you're only going to see the startup failures in here. So every time you are running npm run build or whatever, npm start, this is going to error out, and that's what you're going to see. But you're not going to see the console log from within the app. And as you can see, it is kind of fast enough right now. It tells us that there is an error connecting to MongoDB, and the problem is that our URI parameter should be a string, but we got undefined, which makes sense because we don't have our env set up for our application. Okay, that's where you would look for errors. All right, so now let's set up the environment variables. And for that, you would need to go to the setting tab, configuration. I don't know why Azure called it different, but it is the application settings. And what you need to do is create or just click this button, new application setting. I don't know why is it is application settings. To me, it should be new environment settings or new environment variables, because that's essentially what it is. And you can see in the list here, we have certain environment variables already listed there. So you click that, and then you go to your code, you copy your name, Mongo URI, you paste it here, and you do the same for your value, copy paste, click OK, and then this one, API v1, you click create new one, add your values, OK, and as you can see, these now appear on the list. And be careful with this, because right now you may think, well, that's added. Because for me personally, from UI standpoint, I think they should have a button somewhere down here or somewhere over here, anywhere close to this, right? And because right now you may think that this is saved, this is good to go, everything is fine, but it actually is not saved. If you navigate to other page right now, these will be deleted. Make sure that you save, that you click this save on top here. And I think this should be kind of a little bit more obvious, you know. And the reason, um, not the reason, but I mean, the only place where you can see it's not saved is this asterisk here. It's not, in my opinion, this is not the best UI, but you know, best UX or whatever you want to call it. So it's could have been a little bit better, or at least some pop-up message should have told you that, listen, don't forget to save it. Anyway, we added those, we click save, continue. Now it's going to update those settings. Now they're saved, we're good to go. And if we click on the overview page, we can then hit this restart button. Yes, that's going to restart our application. And since this is Linux, it's going to take like only 10 or 15 seconds, so it's pretty fast. And essentially, if we hit our endpoint after our app restarts, we're going to see a different error now. This one will go away because we just added environment variable, and it will be able to pick up that. But we're going to have an error regarding our IP address is not listed. And now we can connect to the Mongo, but we cannot access our database because we don't have our IP address listed. We don't have our IP address in the whitelist. And the way you do this in Elastic Beanstalk, you would go to your EC2 instance, essentially virtual machine. That virtual machine has an IPv4 address, and you can use that to access your MongoDB. You just copy the IP address for that machine. You go here, you add it, add the IP address, confirm, that's it. Problem solved. Over here, it's a little bit different because we do have IP address. Actually, if you go to settings and networking, or from the overview page, you can click networking right away here, or you can expand these over here. But I suggest you just click on the networking. Here you see the outbound addresses, you expand that. And let me confirm your fears. Yes, you do need to add all of these addresses to your MongoDB in order for the application to properly connect to your database, in this case, MongoDB. You double click, Control C, you go here, Control V, you give it a name, then confirm. and you do that until you add all of them. Okay, you now Control C, Control V, then confirm again. Um, it is a little bit kind of frustrating. Like, why is it this way? Why can't we have just a simple IP address? Or it's okay if we can, purchase for $1 IP address, the same kind of like elastic IP address, right? In AWS, you can buy the elastic IP address, assign it to your machine, and have that constant IP address at all times, and it's super cheap. Over here, well, it is what it is. This is the way. You just copy all the values, you add them to MongoDB, make sure all of them are in there. And believe me, this is going to work. So it's not like you're going to do this for nothing. You will be able to connect to your Mongo properly. Okay. I've already tested it for you. I know it's working, but make sure you add all of them. It's only takes you 7 minutes to add all of them, and it's only one time, right? These are not changing. So you add it once and you always have connection. So at least it is free, right? The other solution would be establishing VPC peering or listing a wildcard, like allow access from anywhere. This is okay if you have your pet project, if you're deploying the pet project, if you have like a production app that you need to test before going live. So maybe just don't bother, add this, and um, it should be okay. But essentially, that's what it is. All right. So you add either these or you add the wildcard, and you're going to be able to connect. Now, since we added that to MongoDB, that wildcard, we should see our application connection successful. Let me read this. Okay, so there is an error connecting to database, and that was regarding the IP address is not whitelisted over here. Okay, we just did. Uh, we just added this wildcard, so that error should goes away. That was error from previous. If we refresh this website, we should see our application running. Maybe just give it a couple of refreshes. Well, it eventually will come to life. It's just this thing probably has some timeouts and it needs to run the container again. Um, just wait for a minute, give this refresh. It should appear here. All right, so now we have configured our environment variables. We added our IP address or addresses from the container. What else we need to do? Well, if you are looking for scale out, so basically you want your application when the load increases to scale out and add new instances to be able to handle the load. So essentially, we had that during the setup process in Elastic Beanstalk. But over here, if you want to add that, you're gonna go to the settings and scale out. Okay, since we are in the free tier, this is not available for us, and that is a difference I would say between maybe in a free tier, actual free tier, free subscription. You may have this available for you. I'm not too sure. You would have to investigate that for yourself. But if you're out of a free subscription plan and you're using this free pricing plan, it's not giving you those options, right? They're all grayed out. So in order to enable these, you need to change your plan. And if you select a basic plan, and remember how we were setting up on that basic page in the beginning, it was only giving us the option for this free plan. We didn't have that drop down that we can select from. We only had one option, and that was preset. But if you go over here to change your service plan, all of a sudden, all the other options become available as well. So I don't know what that thing is all about, but keep that in mind. So you can pick the region, even though the pricing plan is not what you want, you can come back here and change it. Okay, so let's switch to the premium, because if you activate basic, not all the options are going to be available from this scale out method. In fact, only one will be available. It's the manual. And there is not a lot of configuration for manual. You just add amount of instances you want, and that's it. You can't really modify anything else. But if you select premium, you can now have full control and you can select any of these, right? And if you want this to be similar to Elastic Beanstalk, then you would have to go to rule-based. You click on this link here, manage rules-based scaling. And then you go either manual or you go to custom auto scale, and you select this scale mode to scale based on metric. And you need to click this add rule inside of this warning here, add rule. This will bring this side menu here. And as you can see, this is looking pretty much familiar to what we had in Elastic Beanstalk. So now we can select the metric name, whether that's CPU percentage, data in, out, and whatever you want is over here, memory percentage as well. Um, and then you add the percentage over here that you want this to trigger at 75, let's say, or 80. So what that means basically is greater than 80 or greater than or equal to. So at this point, it would be either at 80 or above, right? This is greater than, so it has to be 81% in order for this to trigger. So duration, during what time period it's checking, you need, do you need a new environment or not? This is the scale out increment. That's the naming from Elastic Beanstalk. Here it's called instance count. So you can add that and the cooldown time, increase count by, decrease count by, and so on and so forth. You know, all of the metrics are here, so you can just experiment with this. This is a little bit more straightforward from what I can tell compared to Elastic Beanstalk. And also, when you select a different metric name, let's say from CPU percentage, you see how this displays the percent sign over here. If we go to data in, for instance, it now tells you that the whatever you have here is going to be in bytes. So then you can adjust accordingly. So it's a little bit user friendly, you know. In Elastic Beanstalk, it's not necessarily that obvious. Um, okay, so that's pretty much how you set up the rule for your scale out increments or decrement. Scale ins basically at that point. So that's that. Make sure that you have the correct plan for it. Not sure how the free tier works, to be honest, because I'm out of that free tier anyway. And that's pretty much it. You know, all the other settings that you may be interested in are in this left-hand panel. You do have certain settings here, but these are mostly related to your account, right? Not to your container. So that's what I meant in the beginning. This is a little bit kind of user friendly. So it doesn't give you all the settings and options right away, and you can just go ahead and find them over here and adjust them accordingly. Okay. So, and that's it. Let's refresh the app. That should already be working. You see now I refreshed it and it's starting to spin this. Basically, what it does at the moment is trying to spin up the Docker container again and connect to the application. Let's give it a sec over here and it should be coming to life. We have our environments added. We have our IP address wildcard listed. Okay, so that should come to life. And also, while it's loading, look at the connection certificate. Connection is secured. Okay, certificate is valid. So this is giving you the certificate for free for your backend, unlike Elastic Beanstalk. I mean, Amazon gives you certificate for free if you have a domain. If you connect your domain to your application, then you can have it. All right, there we go. So cannot get, that's because we don't have any get request on the root domain. But if we go to API/v1/to-do and hit that, you will get the result back. Okay. So essentially that means your application, your backend application is working. And in order to connect this to your front end now, you go to your front end code, you add this as your base URL, and then you proceed with your endpoints and stuff like that. So this is how you set up the application in Azure, Microsoft Azure. If we go to the database, this test to-dos, you see that test, another test. This is what we see here. And if we add something else, you will obviously see that change in there. So let's give it a name real quick and 1, 2, 3, insert. If we update this application, click refresh, there you go. Now you see this 1, 2, 3 that we just added. All right, that's basically it. I don't want this video to be super long. Again, if you are interested in more detailed explanation and kind of full circle of like how you purchase domain, how you connect your domain, and so on and so forth, go watch the Amazon video, Elastic Beanstalk video. Maybe not necessarily from the perspective that you want to use Amazon, but at least you will understand like how this whole thing works. And essentially, you can do the same thing with Microsoft Azure. Connect your personal domain to this. I don't think it's that hard because everything is straightforward. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this video. Hope you've learned something, and see you in the next one. Bye.